Life had never been easy for Emily, a kind-hearted but struggling young woman who worked tirelessly to make ends meet. She had once dreamed of a beautiful future with Daniel, her college sweetheart, who came from a wealthy family. Back then, their love had seemed unshakable, two souls promising each other forever despite the differences in their worlds. But when Daniel's parents discovered Emily came from poverty, everything changed. They called her unworthy, a gold digger, and convinced Daniel to break off the relationship in the name of family honor. With a broken heart, Emily walked away quietly, choosing dignity over tears. Years passed, and Emily's life remained difficult. She juggled multiple part-time jobs, cleaning offices, waiting tables, and helping at a small thrift shop. Despite her struggles, she never lost her warmth or compassion. Her clothes were old, her shoes worn, but her spirit remained strong. Then one afternoon, as she sorted clothes at the shop, a shiny golden envelope arrived, addressed to her. The handwriting was familiar, elegant, sharp, unforgettable. Her hands trembled as she read the embossed letters. "You are cordially invited to the wedding of Daniel Adams and Rebecca Summers." Her heart sank. Daniel, her Daniel, was getting married. For a long moment, she couldn't breathe. Memories flooded her mind, their long walks, shared laughter, whispered dreams. It felt like her chest might collapse under the weight of it all. She wondered why she had even been invited. Was it an act of cruelty? A reminder of her loss? Or perhaps an attempt to show her how far beneath him she truly was now? At first, Emily thought of throwing the invitation away. But something inside her urged her to face the truth. Maybe this was her final chance to let go, to prove to herself that she had moved on. So, despite her broken heart, she decided to attend. She didn't have a fancy dress or jewelry, just a simple, faded gown she had mended countless times. She looked in the mirror, trying to smile, but the reflection only revealed quiet sorrow. Still, Emily told herself, "I'll go, not for them, but for me." Little did she know, the moment she stepped out of her tiny apartment and met a hungry stranger on the street, her destiny would take a turn so unexpected that it would change her life forever. The morning of the wedding arrived gray and heavy, matching the weight in Emily's heart. She wrapped her old shawl around her shoulders and set out for the grand hotel where the ceremony was to be held. Every step she took felt uncertain, a mixture of pain, courage, and quiet defiance. She had no gift, no glamorous outfit, no companion by her side. But she carried something far more valuable, a heart still capable of kindness, even after being broken. As she walked through the crowded city streets, she noticed a frail old man sitting near the corner of a bakery. His clothes were torn, his face hidden beneath an unkempt beard, and his eyes carried the hollow look of hunger. He held out a trembling hand and whispered, "Please, miss, just a little food." Most people walked past him, pretending not to hear. But Emily stopped. She looked at him closely and saw something familiar, a quiet pain, a kind of loneliness she knew too well. "I don't have much," she said softly, pulling a small paper bag from her purse. Inside were 2 sandwiches she had saved for the day, her only meal before the long evening ahead. Without hesitation, she offered one to him. The man looked at her in disbelief. "You're giving me your food?" he asked, his voice raspy. Emily smiled gently. "We can share it. I'm going to a wedding anyway, I'm sure there'll be plenty of food there." The man's eyes softened, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. They sat together on the curb, sharing that simple meal in silence. It was one of those moments that didn't need words, just warmth. When she stood up to leave, something strange stirred in her heart. She couldn't bear to leave him there alone. "Would you like to come with me?" she asked impulsively. "It's a wedding. You'll have food, maybe even some fun." The man looked stunned. "Me? At a wedding? Dressed like this?" Emily chuckled softly. "Don't worry. You'll be with me. People may not like it, but I'm used to that." He hesitated, then nodded. Together, they began walking toward the Grand Hotel, a poor girl and a beggar, side by side, unaware of the incredible twist fate had prepared. To Emily, it was a simple act of kindness. To Destiny, it was the moment everything began to change. The wedding venue shimmered like a palace. Expensive cars lined the driveway, guests in glittering dresses and crisp suits moved elegantly under chandeliers that sparkled like stars. Emily paused at the gate, her heart pounding. For a moment, she wondered if coming had been a mistake. The beggar beside her, quiet, humble, and oddly calm, looked out of place among the polished marble floors and crystal lights. Yet when he smiled at her reassuringly, she felt a strange sense of courage. "Let's go in," she whispered, holding her head high. As they stepped through the grand entrance, the music softened and dozens of heads turned toward them. Conversations paused mid-sentence. It was as if time itself stopped. Whispers filled the air within seconds. "Who is she? Is that really Emily? She brought a beggar." Emily could feel every stare cutting into her, but she tried to remain composed. She had come here to let go, not to prove anything. The beggar stayed close to her side, his calmness oddly grounding her amid the growing wave of judgment. Then, from across the hall, Daniel appeared, tall, handsome, and dressed in an elegant black tuxedo. For a second, his confident smile faltered when his eyes met hers. Emily's breath caught in her throat. The memories came rushing back, the nights they'd dreamed of forever, the promises he'd once made. But now, he looked at her like a stranger. Standing beside his stunning bride, Rebecca, he seemed to belong to a different world entirely. Rebecca's laughter sliced through the tension. "Oh, Emily," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "you actually came. And who's your guest?" Her voice dripped with mockery. The crowd snickered. Someone whispered, "She must have picked him up on the street." Emily's cheeks burned, but she held her ground. "He's my friend," she said firmly, her voice trembling but brave. The beggar glanced at her, eyes filled with quiet gratitude. Trying to ignore the humiliation, Emily led him to a corner table, far from the mocking gazes. He didn't speak much, but every now and then, he studied the room with surprising sharpness, almost as if he knew it better than anyone else there. Then, his phone rang. Emily watched as he excused himself politely and stepped outside to take the call. Minutes later, the hall's doors burst open, and luxury black cars pulled up outside. Security rushed in, whispering to the staff. The guests turned in confusion. Something was happening, something no one, especially Emily, could have imagined. The soft hum of music faded as whispers rippled through the wedding hall. Guests craned their necks toward the entrance, curiosity painted on every face. The once composed atmosphere of luxury and laughter had shifted into tension. Outside, a convoy of sleek black cars rolled to a stop, the kind reserved for the elite, guarded, and powerful. Drivers hurried out to open doors, and men in tailored suits stepped forward, scanning the area like security professionals. Inside, Emily sat frozen at the corner table, still wondering why her companion hadn't returned. She thought he might have felt embarrassed and left quietly. Her heart sank at the thought, she had wanted to make him feel human, even for a moment. But before she could think further, a deep voice echoed from the entrance. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Adrian Cole, CEO of Cole Enterprises." Gasps filled the hall. The name was well known, one of the most powerful business figures in the city, a man whose wealth could buy everything in that room twice over. The guests rose instinctively, whispering in awe. And then, as the tall figure stepped through the doorway, Emily's eyes widened. It was him, the same man she had shared her sandwich with, the same beggar she had brought along out of kindness. He was no longer in rags but in an impeccably tailored suit, his hair neatly styled, his posture confident and commanding. The transformation was almost surreal. Rebecca's fake smile faltered. Daniel's jaw dropped. That's impossible," he stammered. Adrian's sharp gaze swept across the room before landing on Emily. For a brief moment, his expression softened. Then, with calm authority, he addressed the crowd. Earlier today, he began, I sat on the street, dressed as a beggar. I wanted to see if compassion still existed in this world, if kindness could survive beyond appearances and wealth. He paused, letting his words sink in. And among all the people who passed me by, only one person stopped. Only one shared her food, her time, and her heart, this woman right here. The room went silent. Emily's eyes filled with tears as everyone turned toward her. Adrian walked over and stood beside her. You all judged her for walking in with me, he said firmly, but she showed more grace than anyone here. Money can buy luxury, not humanity. Rebecca's face burned red, and Daniel looked down in shame. Emily couldn't find words, she just stood there, trembling, overwhelmed. The night had begun as her moment of humiliation, but it was turning into something extraordinary. The room was silent, the once lively wedding hall now filled with awe and disbelief. Emily stood beside Adrian Cole, still processing the shocking revelation. Her heart pounded, not from fear this time, but from a strange mixture of vindication and hope. The same people who had mocked her moments ago were now staring at her with wide eyes and whispered apologies that came too late. Adrian's presence was magnetic. He didn't just command attention, he rewrote the narrative of the entire evening. He turned toward Daniel and his bride, Rebecca, his tone calm but unwavering. Your judgment was shallow. You measured worth by wealth and appearance, not by heart or character. And look where it has brought you. Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but words failed him. The arrogance, the pride that had once defined him, melted away under the weight of public scrutiny. Rebecca's fake smiles vanished, replaced by shame and embarrassment. Every guest now understood the truth, Emily's humility and compassion were worth far more than their opulent facades. Then Adrian shifted his gaze back to Emily. Kindness, he said softly, is a rare gift. You shared what little you had without expecting anything in return. That is the kind of person I have always wanted to know. Emily's eyes brimmed with tears as she realized the gravity of his words. She had been rewarded not with wealth or status, but with recognition of her goodness, the one thing no amount of money could buy. The hall erupted in applause, but Emily barely noticed. She was still caught in the whirlwind of emotion, staring at Adrian, who extended his hand gently. Come with me, he said. There's a world out there that appreciates people like you, people with hearts full of courage and compassion. For the first time in years, Emily felt the burden of her past lift. The pain of heartbreak, the humiliation of poverty, and the scars of judgment were slowly replaced with a sense of worth and belonging. She realized that her decision to help a stranger, a simple act of generosity, had set in motion a chain of events far greater than she could have imagined. Later, away from the scrutinizing eyes of the wedding guests, Adrian offered her not only companionship but opportunities, education, career guidance, and a chance at a life she had only dreamed of. Emily, once humiliated and heartbroken, now stood poised to embrace a new beginning. In the end, the story was not just about wealth or social status. It was about humanity, kindness, and the power of integrity. Emily had walked into that wedding expecting pain, but she left with dignity, respect, and a future brighter than anything she could have ever imagined. Her story became a living testament. True kindness always finds its reward, and true love is often hidden in the most unexpected places.